what he's done for me, I got one choice but to worship him. Hallelujah. Please forgive me. The Levites just showed up in the room. I only need about 500 worshipers. Would you just praise, worship our God like you know he is worthy of the praise? Where are the worshipers? Hallelujah. Bless your holy name. Be seated right where you are. Ecclesia, ladies and gentlemen, has been misinterpreted. It's been misinterpreted, whereas ecclesia has been placed in the New Testament 115 times. But we have a problem with the translation because of the postmodern translation that you find now in your New Living Translation, your NIV. Our Bible has replaced ecclesia with the word church. The closer translation is not church but assembly. Now, and they would only assemble when there's been a cry. If there has not been a cry, then the people will not gather. Can I say something to some frustrated pastor who's trying to figure out why the church won't grow? It won't grow as long as y'all are silent. But when there is a cry, saints who've got God running through them will understand there's no way I can be in the presence of God and remain silent. God help me in here, but whenever I hear the sound of worship, there is something that quickens in my spirit that says, I said I wasn't going to tell nobody, but I can't keep it to myself. I got too many whisperers in here tonight. I wonder if I got any criers that will say, I will cry unto the Lord a new song. Y'all still acting like you scared and shy, but are there any criers that will say, Lord, if I ever needed you before, I sure do need you. I need you now. When they came together in the assembly or in the ecclesia, they were not coming for business as usual. But they were coming to get marching orders, to get directive, because they had a purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time out for us just having church to have church. If I'm coming to church, preacher, you better give me some instructions on how I'm going to make it through another week. I didn't come to church just for an hour and a half or turn to your neighbor and ain't he all right and won't he do it? I know all of that. But you better tell me how I'm going to step on scorpions and lay hands on the sick and speak those things that are not as though they already are. I need some instructions. And so we have limited through a narrow perspective what the ecclesia is to a church, a building, a reformation, or an organization. The original intention of the ecclesia is understanding that I do not need an address to worship him, but wherever I am, I've got to give him glory. See, some of y'all are running a little bit behind because you had to sit through church to get in the mood. But there's a small contingency in here that said, this is just my after party. I've been shouting by myself all week. I just came to let y'all shout with me. Would you look at your neighbor and say, I shout like this at home. I shout when I'm in the traffic by myself. I shout when I'm in the checkout line in the supermarket because he's been so good. I don't come to church. I take church with me. Be seated, please. Be seated right where you are, please. Hallelujah. Would you just look at your neighbor and tell him I'll shout anywhere? It doesn't matter where I am. As a matter of fact, you better not push me right now. I've been sitting on a real praise, and all I need is one more thing to happen to me. I will turn this church upside down. God, I can't hear nobody in here. If you got a backed up praise from everything that the devil tried to do to you, would you just shout right now like I'm tired of get it out. Be seated, please. I'm almost finished. Be seated, please. It's a terrible thing when you've been misunderstood. Hallelujah. I'm in John chapter 19. And in John chapter 19, there's a misunderstanding when we get to verse number 30. Because verse number 30 in the English translation says, after he had the wine. He says in the King James, it is finished. But in the original intention of the Greek, it just says teleo or teleo, which simply means finished. Now, some of you are looking at me saying, Pastor, that's a slight nuance. I really don't find the significance between finished and it is. Can I suggest to somebody that all Jesus said was finished? But Jerome added, it is. When God gives you a word, don't let people add nothing to it. God, I can't hear nobody in here. When God says something over your life, you don't need nobody to give you their 2 cents. Just go over the word God has given you. All he said was finished. Now, the reason why I argue the point, and it may seem minute and minuscule and mundane for some of you, but he did not say it is. Yes, because if he had said it, that represents an inanimate object that's been previously mentioned. Now, what has been previously mentioned? Thirst. If he had said it, it means an inanimate object that has previously been mentioned, which is thirst, or something that is about to be mentioned, which is spirit. God help me. You got to understand now that if in fact it was just about what he thirsted, then his dying would just be about my desire. His dying would have just been about my discomfort. Had he said it is spirit, and he was talking not about the previously mentioned inanimate object, but the forthcoming mention that is about to come out of his mouth, then it would have suggested he means his spirit is finished. Marvin, he cannot mean that, because he still says something after this. See, there are a whole lot of people who misunderstood you. They thought it was over for you, but they didn't know I still got something in me. God help me, and I wish there was somebody in the room that can think about the moments in your life where you almost fell down, broke down, fallen apart, but at the last minute God gave you another breath of energy, and you had to tell the enemy, it is not finished for me. I still got something. Be seated, please. Hallelujah. He did not say it is finished, nor did he say I'm finished. God help me, he didn't say I'm finished because he wanted the enemy to understand you might have got somebody else, but you didn't get me. And I wish there was somebody in the house that understands that the devil is a liar. God help me in here. I was late in getting to church tonight. I was late trying to get here because I had to feed my daughters before I left out. And a door was giving me some trouble. A door was sitting there while her sisters were already completed their meal. I sat down with the door and I had to do the lost episode of Let's Make a Deal. I said, Adore, you got to eat that broccoli. Adore looked at me with glazed eyes, waiting for a tear to fall. She said, Daddy, don't make me eat it. It's nasty. I don't like it. And I want it to be over. I said, Adore, you got to eat all of it. Even though you don't like it, it's going to make you stronger. She said, Daddy, please don't make me eat it. I said, you got to stay here and eat all of it. But I tell you what, if you eat all of it, I'll give you ice cream when you finish. She cried. cried. But while she's cried, she's taking the fork and taking the thing that's nasty and putting it in her mouth. Her sisters came and stood around her chair and said, Adore, hurry up. She said, I'm trying. She said, if you don't, this is what Grace and Angel said to Adore, we can't get what we need until you finish. It's not until you finish that we'll get what we want. Come on, Adore. Adore said, I'm trying. It's nasty. It's bitter. It's not what I like. She's just pulling at it, taking little scraps and putting it in her mouth. I said, Adore, you're taking too long. I gotta go get dressed and go to church. I said, the two of y'all sit with your sister while she deals with the nasty thing. But Angel said, Daddy, go on. You ain't even gotta watch her. I'm gonna stay here until it's all finished. I said, Adore, hurry up. I want you finished before I go to church. Angel is looking at her sister, rolling her eyes, crossing her teeth. You messing it up for everybody. Adore said, leave me alone. I'm trying to do the best I can with something that's nasty. I got in the shower. When I got out of the shower, I hollered down the hall, Grace, is Adore finished? She said, not yet, Daddy. I put on my suit, put on my tie. I hollered down the hall, Angel, is Adore finished? She said, not yet, Daddy. I put on my shoes, put my Bible in the bag. I'm headed to the door, but I heard somebody running down the hall. She said, Daddy, finish. And I came to tell somebody, no matter how nasty it is, it's almost finished. Grab your neighbor by the hand. Say, neighbor, let there be no misunderstanding. I shall live and not die. Look at your neighbor. Say, don't get it twisted. I will bless the Lord at all times, and his praise shall continually be in my mouth. Look at your neighbor. Tell your neighbor, I only got one more shout, and this shout is not for you. This shout is not for the preacher. This shout is not for the Word Network, but I'm shouting in the devil's face. You mess with the wrong one. I'm still here. Somebody shout, shout, shout. Real quick, go run to two people and just holler finish. Just holler finish.